And to speak more about this, joining us from London is one of the people leading the fight to stay in the EU, Femi Oluwole, the co-founder of Our Future, Our Choice. Femi, I'd like to begin by asking you, your future wasn't expected to be an activist in this fight. You were actually beginning your dream job, weren't you?
Yeah, I was working in human rights at the EU level in Vienna. I also did work on human rights in Brussels. I did Erasmus in France. A European career in human rights was pretty much my plan. But I saw what was happening in my country. I saw that we were being lied to on a topic that I studied personally, EU law, and so I had to get involved.
So what would you like to see the lawmakers do today? Is there anything they could do in London today that would satisfy you?
They need to recognize that in 2016, we voted to leave the EU, but we did not say which relationship we would prefer to have with the EU. Now, it's very, very clear that the relationship we just negotiated does not have the approval of the British people. The only logical thing is to say, all right, we voted to leave. We now don't like the relationship we just negotiated. Let's have a referendum where people get to decide between the two. Let them decide whether or not they want to leave on those terms that have been negotiated or stay a member of the European Union. And I think if given that choice, we'd vote to stay in the EU.
But is a second referendum, I mean, where does it end? Is there any chance that if there were a second referendum, whichever side lost would say, hey, why not have a third referendum?
Well, because in 2016, we signed a blank check. 2016, Brexit was 4 words: leave the European Union. Right now, we've got a 585-page treaty, which nobody likes. That's because nobody defined what the new relationship would be. Now we know what it is. It's only sensible that the people get to judge that deal. There would be no point in having a new referendum because what would it be on? We basically, the second referendum completes the first. It's like saying, I'll pay for your meal. Then you find out what the cost of the meal is going to be. You don't like it, so you change your mind. After that, there's no real decision to make.
But whose fault is this? We've seen bickering from the Conservatives. Also, every political party has been sharing part of this blame. Is this a failing of the leaders? Is this a failing of how the campaign was framed?
It's a failure of the entire political system, and not only just in the sense that they did not explain the benefits of the EU in 2016. They went on basic scare stories saying if you vote to leave the EU, there'll be all these job losses, but they didn't explain what the single market was, just the basics. Secondly, it's a failure of the political class in terms of just leaving vast areas of the country behind. So the areas far, far from London, I'm talking about Swansea, Hull, areas in the north of England, areas in Wales that have not had the same investment that you've seen in London. Those areas were fed up with the political class, tired, and they wanted change. And they saw Brexit as a way to make that change happen. And so it is a failure of the political class that we've gotten here, that we voted for something as damaging as leaving the European Union. And we also see it in France. There is a rise in populism because the politicians are not recognizing that they need to start caring about their entire population, not just the big cities.
And we talk about this rise in populism in the UK, in France. It seems to be coming up as a sort of anti-establishment movement. At the same time, your campaign, Our Future, Our Choice, it's drawing heavily on the youth. Do you think the youth in the UK are more or less in the pro-Remain camp, or are they divided as well with Brexiteers?
In 2016, in the age group of 18 to 24, the exit polls show, so the votes that the polls that were done literally as people were leaving the voting booth, showed that 73% of that age group voted to stay in the EU. We are a highly pro-European age group, and that's because we are more connected to the outside world than any generation before us. We tweet American presidents. We have YouTubers that are in France. We take holiday jobs in Italy. We do not want to lose the right to live, work, and love in 31 countries across Europe. That goes against everything we stand for. Not to mention the fact that we live our lives on expertise that we don't understand. We live our lives on mobile phones. We don't know how these work. So when experts tell us that leaving the EU would be bad for us, leaving the EU would be bad for our economy, we trust that they know better.
So one final question for you real quickly. You've been outspoken against this Brexit process. What's going to happen if, for you, the worst-case scenario does come to pass and the UK pulls out of the EU? Would you be looking to move abroad?
I would definitely feel less at home here. I mean, when the referendum happened in 2016, my first thought was my country will never be good again, and that was the same thought that was felt across the country, because it's a complete value shift. The idea that we would just lock ourselves up, especially on the back of a narrative that was highly anti-immigration, anti-foreigner. I was very, very scared that this country would not be something that I could respect, but I don't believe we're going to head that direction. I do believe that we are going to stay in the EU. And I'd ask your French viewers to just keep the door open for us, because on arrive.
Keep the door open, keep the light on. Femi, thank you very much for your analysis, for your story, and for your time. Femi Oluwole, co-founder of Our Future, Our Choice. We go to Venezuela.